IFL Science. We've got a new survey that they've just been reporting on that just came out, talking about 66% of young adults in America accept that the Earth is round, according to a new survey. That's right, 66%. What does that mean? There's a lot of people starting to doubt the shape of the Earth. What? How could that be? This is 2018. Tell you one thing, we're having a major impact with this survey. Let's read on. The Flat Earth movement clearly isn't going away anytime soon. Although we'd argue that it's not going to suddenly become a mainstream belief, it is concerning how discussed it is, and admittedly the coverage of it, from a scientifically whimsical to the ridiculous, probably isn't helping by giving such beliefs a platform. Still, it's a phenomenon worth looking into, and YouGov survey has done just that. The results are unsettling, and hopefully the work of a certain demographic not taking the questions particularly seriously. So basically they're hoping that a lot of the results that came back, maybe people were just joking around, but as we read, you're going to find out that no, that was not the case. Surveying 8,215 US adults weighted to be representation of the entire US population, it suggests that just 84% have always believed the world is round. Among 18 to 24-year-olds, however, this percentage falls to 66%, though it continually rises through various age groups to reach a peak of 94% for 55 plus. The thought that just 2/3 of young adults in America accept that the planet is an oblate spheroid is deeply concerning. But wait, there's more. 5% of US adults have always thought the world was round, but have become more skeptical as of late. This number rises to 9% among 18 to 24-year-olds. In contrast, 2% of all those surveyed have always believed the world is flat, which rises to 4% among 18 to 24-year-olds. 7% of the total answered other not sure, which rises to 16% in 18 to 24-year-olds. Generally speaking, the older someone in the US someone is, the less likely they are to have any flat earth beliefs. In this sense, then the trend is the opposite, for the acceptance of the theory of evolution in its most basic form, with older people less likely to accept that life has evolved over time. Other curiosities pop out of the YouGov survey. Slightly fewer Democrats, 83%, have always believed the world is round, compared to Republicans, 89%, or Independents, 88%. Slightly more men have always believed the world is round, 86%, compared to women, 83%. People earning $80,000 per annum are more likely to accept the correct shape of Earth, 92%, than those earning $40,000 to $80,000, 87%, or under $40,000, 79%. So again, they're running down these numbers. They're obviously trying to show that people that are earning more are more, likely to accept the correct shape of the Earth, as they put it. Basically getting into the whole idea of going through the educational system the longest. Most people that are earning these type of annual salaries have gone through university levels. They've been indoctrinated into, all the stuff that scientism has given them, from their professors. And it starts from, obviously education from an early age, spinning the globe. But as we move up, they start talking, getting into biology and getting into all these different sciences. They start teaching, this is where you've come from, kids. You've evolved from apes and slime, and this is kind of what's going on. So, as people, that are moving away or into the workforce earlier, they're not susceptible to, so much heavily indoctrination in the advanced stages when you get into the levels of education after, junior and high school and these type of things. So I just find it interesting they're throwing this out, but it's crazy that these numbers are showing what they are. Now, they go so far at the end of the article, let's keep reading here. They talk about most flat earthers are religious. This is another thing they've come up with. Here's YouGov tweeted out, there's always been conspiracy theories and believers that the earth is not a globe, but a flat disk. Whether or not it's due to science or religious beliefs, 2% of Americans, they say the earth is flat. So understand that 2% based on their study is showing that people are saying the earth is flat. If you understand a percentage like that, it might not sound like a lot, but that is a tremendous amount. I mean, if they were to do these surveys 10 years ago, it would probably be a fraction of a percent. The fact that, 2% of Americans, based on doing a, survey based on the populace of the US, compile those numbers at around almost 10,000 people, It's interesting because, again, that's a heavy, heavy number. When you consider a population, say, of a city of 1 million, even at 1%, you're dealing 10,000. So you're dealing with 20,000 people in a city of 1 million. So if you start amplifying that and just multiplying that with different cities, you can kind of see where these numbers are. Now, I'd imagine there's a lot of people, and this was obviously an anonymous survey, that, they're out there right now, they're watching these videos, they're not vocal, they're worried about coming out and talking about this due to ridicule and all these things. But these are the things that we really need to kind of keep pushing and enforcing with people, is that there are a lot of people waking up to this deception, an incredible amount of people. In a very short time, this many people starting to question the shape of the earth. And a lot of people laugh this off and think it's funny, and we all did. We all thought this was crazy when we first heard it. There's very, very few people that didn't. And I'm not going to say everyone, but again, for me, I laughed at it. I thought this was ridiculous when I first heard about it. And again, most of us come to that understanding. So we should be a little understanding when people are coming to us, laughing at us and thinking this is the craziest thing they've heard, because, we thought the same thing. But what it's showing is there is a tremendous amount of people starting to look into this, and flat earth is winning, and truly God is waking up a tremendous amount of people. And why this is important is because it screams creator. Now, while this survey talked about religious, and they said most flat earthers are religious, which is interesting because there's a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that even follow my channel would definitely not consider themselves self-religious. And I don't even consider myself religious. I always talk about the fact that it's all about relationship, not about religion. That's entirely what God wants. He desires a relationship, not this man-made structured religion. But again, that's a whole other video for another time. But what I'm saying is, and I've said this many times, is there are no atheists on a flat earth. Understand that anybody that comes to this, when they start looking at it and understanding it, however their model is, when they understand the fact that we're not moving, that everything was created for us, that we're the center stage, there is a creator, there is no room for atheism. So I have yet to find anyone that can actually bring together and compile a serious discussion on how they can bring an enclosed worldview, or even not enclosed, but just a flat stationary world with no creation. What just happened by accident through what, a flat earth Big Bang? I mean, that doesn't even exist. So the fact is that people really realize that, okay, we've been lied to. They've been trying to hide God from us. And again, there's a lot of people that hold to different belief systems around that. And they're not quite sure yet, and they're searching. Fine. But my point is, coming from a completely scientism worldview that basically annihilates any notion of God, destroys God in people's minds overnight, because every one of their paradigms is put together that doesn't need God. These are quotes from like Stephen Hawkins and different people that have said this themselves. God is not needed, because everything is explained without a intelligent design. It's just, obviously it's random, it's an accidental explosion, which is completely nonsense. It's not even science. And yet, we're told that, we're science deniers. I'm a scientism denier and proud of it. There's nothing wrong with science. Unfortunately, most people have moved away from true science, and that's all they're doing these days, is preaching scientism dogma. But again, when you look at these things and you look at these numbers, the idea that all these people are understanding they've been lied to, and great amounts of people are waking up. And the fact that they're saying 2% of Americans basically 100% say the earth is flat, these are huge numbers. Start doing the math on it based, like I said, it's 20,000 per million people. That is a lot of people. So, I mean, I live in a city of about 1 million. That's 20,000 people that are here in my city somewhere, and that's an incredible amount of people. So we need to really look at that and go, wow, this is really having a major impact on people. People are seeing this. They're seeing this in the headlines. They're seeing this with the news. They're seeing with all this attention. And again, it is great because it gets people questioning the world. It gets people opening the Bible again, looking at, okay, well, if science lied to me, then what's true? And if there is a creator, I want to get to know. Can I know more about this creator? And that's just a fantastic thing. So I'm excited. Like I said, when I saw this, with IFL Science putting out this with YouGov, US, they're concerned. They're incredibly concerned. I mean, if you actually look at the beginning of the article, they talk about how concerning it is. They talk about, like, what are we doing? Maybe we're giving it too much publicity. We shouldn't be doing that. Again, this is their internal thoughts on the matter, but that's the reality. Is every time a sports star, celebrity, anybody mentions it, there's millions of people that look into it, and they come to videos like this one. They come to great videos. They maybe come to really bad videos, but so what? we've all stumbled across that bad video. It didn't stop us from learning the truth and knowing, what was right. We can take the good, leave the bad. And on our journey for the truth, we can be confident enough to understand that people are starting to question seriously what they have been taught from the foundations of the world, creation, who we are, where we're going, what this is all about. Everything is coming together. So it's an incredible awakening taking place. It's amazing to see these numbers based on these surveys. Let's just keep it up. Honestly, spread the word, share videos like this, share, talk to your friends, your family, whoever you can. If you're, a little bit more, introverted and stuff, and you want to just kind of do it, there's many ways to do it. I'm just saying, get the incredible amount of energy and excitement for what is taking place. This is a really exciting time. While there's a lot of ridicule and it's really tough to be an outspoken flat earther, again, if you look at any type of things throughout history, it was always really tough at the very beginning stages of anything to this magnitude. And based on these numbers, and based on even projections, based on social media and what's happening, just with everything, with conferences happening, in different countries of the world, with famous people coming forward, people starting to question it, people starting to have these discussions. I'm having these discussions with people, even in my own circle, that have been watching and following different things that I've been doing for the last 3 years. And they're asking more questions. And it's always good to ask questions. And like I say all the time is, don't listen to what I say. Go out and do your own research. And again, truth can be found and truth is important. So why, I do what I do is because the truth is important. And we all owe it to ourselves to at least investigate and research the best that we can do to find out truly, what is the truth. And let's expose the world's lies. Guys, this is another Celebrate Truth video. I wanted to put this out real quick. I thought it was exciting. Like I said, just 66% of young adults in America accept the earth is round. That is a lot of people based on this survey. And again, at 2% saying 100% definitively that the earth is flat, that's a confident number. Based on 2%. I would imagine it was probably 1%, maybe 5 years ago. And the fact that it's 2, it'd probably be at 5, and it could even be at 7 in the next 5-10 years. Who knows? But again, it's not going to happen overnight. But everything is having an effect, whether you're sharing on social media, whether you're doing different things, you're doing outreach. There's so many ways. If you're doing it through art, or you're doing videos, you're doing music, or there's so many incredible ways to get this truth out and let people investigate it. And while a lot of people will laugh and mock us, there's going to be those few that are going to say, tell me more. Take care, guys. Blessings.
Why am I even talking about this stuff? Because I believe, as all you guys indicated, that we should take the Bible literally. Well, the problem is, when I started to do that with regard to this particular subject, I got myself in a lot of trouble, and some of you know what I'm talking about if you've been following my YouTube channel and Facebook page. This one really got to me, though, is when we get to the 4th day, and he talks about the creation of the sun, moon, and stars. And it says in 3 places that he put them in the firmament. Now, I used to teach the same thing that is taught by Kent Hovind and Karl Baugh and others, that the firmament was a canopy, an ice canopy that surrounded the earth. And it's a great theory. And that, so the theory goes, something impacted it probably, and the firmament disintegrated. The windows of heaven, as it were, opened up, and the canopy disintegrated over a period of 40 days and 40 nights, and it rained down on the earth. Great theory, pretty awesome. There's a couple problems with it, though. Number one, we have Psalm 148, verse 4, says in a post-flood context, praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that be, at the time of David, above the heavens. There's still water up there. Number one. But this is the bigger problem. When you look up the Hebrew there, you see in the red, it's Berekia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. The point is there's a letter bait preceding the Hebrew word. I learned this much in Hebrew 101, taking it twice, that when a word is preceded with the prefix of bait, it means in, not outside and around. which is what the Kent Hovind Karl Barth thesis requires. The Earth surrounded in a firmament and the sun, moon, and stars outside of it. So I saw a video that Kent Hovind did on the two firmaments. And he acknowledged that this is a problem, so he did a whole video talking about, well, the first one was destroyed, but there's one on the outside perimeter of the universe, whatever that means. And I'm like, dude, book, chapter, verse on that, man.
I can't prove this at all. Here's the Hovind theory. When God first made the earth, there was earth and space. Then, in day 2, he put a crystalline canopy above the atmosphere, and where Adam and Eve lived and the birds fly, maybe 10 miles up, wild guess. And he must have put a second crystalline firmament beyond the stars. Nobody knows where does the universe end? And what's on the other side? I don't know. But it says the waters that be above the heavens. There are two. In answer to the legitimate criticism that the birds fly in the firmament and the stars are in the firmament, there may be two crystalline canopies and two firmaments. Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he was caught up to the third heaven. Hovind theory would be the first heaven is the atmosphere that we're breathing up. Maybe it used to be maybe 10 miles thick, and now it's expanded out to 50 or 60 miles. Who cares? It used to have a atmosphere, I'm going to pick a number and say 10 miles thick, a layer of ice, maybe 3 fingers thick, like Josephus and the Jews taught, have always taught. Then stars with bazillions of stars in it going who knows how far, and then another crystalline firmament. And beyond that, I don't know. But Paul was caught up to the third heaven.
Lack of understanding the three-level heavens is what leads the flat earthers' belief that of what would seem very logical, actually, if there was only one heaven with one firmament. So in their defense, it may not seem so outrageous as most of us might think.
And God said, "Let there be a firmament, a firmament, a firmament, a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, the firmament, the firmament, the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
True Bible cosmology, however, tells us that there are 3 different realms with 3 different firmaments separating them from one another.
So the first heaven would be where the birds fly, the second heaven where the stars are, and the third heaven where God lives. Best I can figure out.
Now you notice these guys wrestling with significant levels of cognitive dissonance here. They are forcing something into the Bible that is found nowhere in the Scriptures. An idea of more than one firmament. Genesis describes the creation of a firmament, singular, the firmament, not multiple firmaments. And the word shemaim is plural, im, heavens. The heavens are contained within the firmament, with the exception, of course, I would say, of the heaven where God is, because he's right above it. His throne is sitting on the firmament. But these guys they're coming up with a second firmament, a third firmament. Look, it doesn't say that. The Scriptures don't support that at all. The only reason they're coming up with this idea of multiple firmaments is because they're wrestling with text that clearly states that the birds are in the firmament and the sun, moon, and stars are in the firmament also, but they want to hold on to this canopy theory and force the Bible into some sort of contorted justification for their preconceived bias. You can't do that. There's one firmament. And I'm kind of amazed, actually, that people really struggle with this. I hear this question all the time. Well, how can the birds be flying in the firmament? If the firmament's a hard structure, how does that work? Because they want to justify the fluffy expanse of the atmosphere and clouds and whatnot, and because they have the preconceived bias that the birds are flying inside an atmosphere, and the atmosphere, therefore, is, as Doug Hamp wants to say, the expanse. The firmament's just the expanse of air, atmosphere, and space. That's how birds are flying in the expanse, because it's just air. No, everything's inside the firmament. That is the structure enclosing this biblical earth model. Birds are flying in the firmament the same way you live in a house or drive in a car. It's not rocket science, but just to prove the point, I was referring to how when you use the letter bait before a word, as a prefix that it means in. And we've got a number of examples I could just show you to prove it. Okay, I'm going to use King James here. Genesis 2:4. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day. Look up the Hebrew. Okay, and we see in that day. Day is yom, preceded by the letter beit. Beyom, in the day. In other words, it happens within the time period that is a day. Genesis chapter 2, verse 5, next verse, King James. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth. This is interesting too. A lot you don't see on the earth. You see consistently all through scriptures, all over the scriptures, you'll consistently see the phrase in the earth when it's properly translated. When you look into the Hebrew, you're going to see it's aretz is earth and ba'aretz, in the earth. Well, you know, in our modern cosmological worldview, and some people have tried to spin off into all kinds of theories about Cain and Nephilim and whatnot going inside the earth, as in underground, in the earth. And while I can agree that there is an inner earth, that there are things down there and things do take place down there, you can't use that mentality for every time it says in the earth. And on the earth is not proper. Not with this prefix of bait. It's in the earth. Well, that only really makes sense if the earth is an enclosed system. If it's a firmament, dome enclosed snow globe system, in the earth makes perfect sense because it's inside the dome, in the dome. Just like the birds fly in the dome, in the firmament, stars, sun, moon, and stars are in the dome, in the firmament. So are we. It's all inside the firmament. Just like right here. In the earth, ba'aretz, Genesis 2, verse 7. I mean, we can go through a whole scripture. I'm just going to go through a few of them here. The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils. All right, let's look that up. And breathe into his nostrils. The bait preceding the word. In, into, inside. Genesis 2:8. The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden. Look it up. In Eden. Word preceded by the letter bait. And, I mean, I could go through verse by verse. Every time it says in something like that, you're typically going to find that it's got the prefix of the letter bait. And, but this is another interesting one. Exodus 4:6. And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. This is where God is having Moses do various things that will serve as signs to show the people. Into his bosom. And you look that up, and there it is again. All right? So, inside, in the earth, in the firmament. Birds fly in the firmament the same way you live in a house. The same way you drive in a car. It's not rocket science. I love Ken Hovind. I consider him a brother. He is largely responsible for the problems I'm having right now because he came through my little Baptist church when I was in my late teens, early 20s, did his creation week-long seminar, Creation versus Evolution. I got his 6 VHS set. Remember VHS back in the day? It's like 12 hours of Ken Hovind creation stuff. I dubbed it all to audio cassette and would listen to it religiously in my car till I practically had it memorized and would teach it myself. I loved all that stuff. And he's the one that taught me, he and others, that this is our source for truth. And of course, he's King James only. This is our source for truth, and we can take it literally. Okay, brother, that's what I'm trying to do. And we're running into problems with that idea of the firmament being an ice canopy.
And in case there are any conspiracy theorists out there, how would you prove to us that you're in zero gravity?
Welcome to the real world.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right.
If you were to go to NASA and download one of their photos of the Earth in the moon sky, and put it in Photoshop, okay, drop the saturation and the levels down, you'll see that the Earth has been pasted in, because you'll see a rectangular box around the Earth. It's all fraud, it's all fake. Pretty much everything NASA puts out is fraudulent.
Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. An error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
We, the legislature, recognize that there is a debate about whether the Earth is round or flat.
No.
And let's encourage critical thinking by saying there should be a legitimate debate between whether the Earth is round or flat. Because after all, any idiot can walk outside and look and see that it's flat.
To debate this?
All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care.
Around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it.
And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline?
There you go. Indicting the entire government as usual. It's a faction. A small faction.
For what possible gain?
The corner of Liberty and Washington. Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center. We're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
Boom!
Oh, man. What the fuck's going on? Wow. Oh, shit. Wow.
You cannot prove a lie.
Well, you say, for example, that there were no planes that hit the World Trade Center. Is that your contention? Well, did you see the videotape that the rest of us saw?
What you will see is a fake, a cartoon display.
You're suggesting if there's some kind of cartoon animation there, you're suggesting that the news media was a part of this.
Yes,
those pictures came from the news
No
media.
second plane. It was a bomb. Bombed another building, not second plane. That was a bomb. Who said the second plane?
That's what we're told. The second plane. We saw it on television. We saw it on television. We saw it on television.
When? Skylar, I was medicated. I mean, I could have said the world was flat.
You know what I think? I think you accidentally told the truth.
This is the reunion island from the Isle of Mauritius. It's 149 miles away. It's a long, long, long way away. And once again, we can see the peak, but we can also see most of the rest down. This is quite clearly a very, very good observational day. Very clear, very calm. The highest peak on Reunion Island is 3,072 meters tall. It's just under 2 miles. 149 miles away, everything should be behind 2.8 miles of curvature. Should have curved way, way away. And again, it's not just the tops we can see much more. We can see a lot more, 2,000 feet or so of that.
One sort of other proof is there's a place in Bolivia called Salar de Uyuni, which is a salt flat. It's literally 100 miles wide one way and 80 miles across, and it's perfectly flat. And when it rains, literally you get an inch of water, and it looks like a perfect mirror. Now, how does that happen on a sphere? Yeah, it shows you that, you know, if you're one end of this salt flat, you can see perfectly clearly the other end 100 miles away. So it's just showing you that you know, the Earth is flat, and without the effect of the waves in the sea, you'll be able to see a whole lot further. Just recently, there was a case of a woman who was pregnant on a flight, and she was her waters broke on the flight, and I think it was from the Philippines to Los Angeles. They were flying across, and literally her waters broke, and they had to divert. They had to land. So instead of either going back to the Philippines or going on to Los Angeles, they landed in Alaska, which again, if you look on the flat map, it's again a straight path.
Number 10. All the other planets and stars we've ever seen are round, and there's no reason to indicate that the Earth should be any different.
This isn't real. What is real?
Number 9. Time zones. Day and night happen at different times at different places on Earth. In fact, it's always day somewhere and night somewhere else.
Now, most people say, well, I see the sun rise and set. How can that be if it's just going round in a circle? Well, that's perspective again. If you actually see video of the sun coming up and going down, many times you'll see that the sun starts off as it's coming up very, very tiny, and it gets bigger as it gets closer to midday, and then gets smaller again. It's literally that effect of perspective. You know, with something's above you, like the ceiling in a hallway, yeah, as it goes further away, it will seem to sink down towards the horizon until it disappears beyond the limit of your sight. And that's all you're seeing. You're seeing literally the sun circling overhead, but seeming to set.
Here's the first test of a sun moving over a flat surface, and with no atmospheric magnification, it does what we might expect it would. It gets smaller as it goes away from us. Alright, now let's see what happens when we add in our atmospheric magnification. Again, water and refraction. Water causes magnification and refraction, right? So let's bring the sun back. Oh, check this out. Refraction bends the light downward. It made the sun set on a parallel surface.
as it was moving parallel, the same height, the whole way over a flat surface.
Number 8. The Coriolis effect means freely moving things like cannonballs or hurricane winds are deflected to the right, but only if you're north of the equator. If you're south of the equator, they're deflected left. Number 7. Triangles. If you walk 10,000 kilometers straight along the Earth's surface, turn 90 degrees to your right, walk 10,000 kilometers more, turn right again, and walk another 10,000 kilometers, you'll be back to where you started, having successfully made a triangle with 3 90-degree angles. Number 6. The sun, in general, gets lower and lower in the sky as you travel away from the equator, and you can use this to directly measure the Earth's curvature. Pick 2 places a few hundred miles directly north and south of each other, and at noon, measure the shadows cast by a vertical meter stick at each location. You can use the shadow lengths to figure out the angle between the sticks, and once you add in how far apart they are, you can calculate the Earth's curvature.
The same phenomenon Eratosthenes measured could be explained by a flat Earth if the sun were only a few thousand miles away and 32 miles across. The math would work out the same.
Number 5. The stars at night change as you go north or south. For example, Orion is upside down if you're in Australia. Number 4. Ferdinand Magellan, and many people afterwards, circumnavigated the Earth. That means he left headed west, continued going west, and came back to where he started, still going west. Actually, Magellan was dead, but one of his ships, led by Juan Sebastian Elcano, finished the journey. If you head west and circumnavigate the Earth yourself, you'll be able to tell because you'll observe one fewer sunrise than everyone who stays at home. Ferdinand Magellan, and many people afterwards, circumnavigated the Earth. That means he left headed west, continued going west, and came back to where he started, still going west. Number 3. The horizon. Ships on the ocean or tall Chicago buildings viewed over Lake Michigan disappear bottom first. The simple fact is, if the Earth were flat, there wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear, so from across Lake Michigan you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
And what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
That we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
It was on CNN, it's true. I seen it on Fox. It's real. It's bullshit.
Number 2. During a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the Earth on the moon is curved.
If you've ever looked at the consistency of what we've been told to be moon rocks, you will realize quickly that the surface of said moon rock hasn't the reflective capacity to accomplish such a feat of reflecting light from the sun, let alone reflecting light from 93 million miles away.
On January 31st, Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, California, did a complete recording of the lunar eclipse going through all its phases. Then they compressed it into a 60-second time lapse. Rather impressive. But towards the end, you'll see that the moon goes over the horizon at an angle. While you're watching the video, for some reason or another, they uploaded it as if you were watching the video straight up. But once it gets over to the horizon, you realize that you were supposed to be watching it like this.
And to the west, we have the moon in a total lunar eclipse. It's blood red. See that? So how can there be a lunar eclipse? How can the Earth be causing that when the sun is up over here? See that? The sunrise. See how it's light over there? That's the sun. So wait, if the sun lights up over here, how can it be going down and around the Earth to then block the moon? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Come on, people. That just seriously debunks the whole heliocentric model right here. Right here.
If I've told you earthly things, and you believe not, how shall you believe if I tell you of heavenly things?
And number 1. We know the Earth is round because we have photographic evidence. And number 1. We know the Earth is round because we have photographic evidence.
Here they are hurling through space on a molten rock at 67,000 miles an hour, and the only thing that keeps them from flying out of their shoes is their misplaced faith in gravity.
Their misplaced faith in gravity. Their misplaced faith in gravity.
They manipulate our history books. The history books are not true. It's a lie. That's right, Michael. The history books are lying. That's right. You need to know that. You must know that.
This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Just rotate it.
So it's actually floating above the surface?
Yeah, it's not floating, it's locked above the surface.
You think that's air you're breathing now? You've been living in a dream world, Neo.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe. Welcome to the real world.
Hey, it's Celebrate Truth. I'm Robbie Davidson. We got a Fox News article calling the moon startup to put cell phone tower on the moon. This should be interesting. Let's see, shall we? An astronaut wandering the moon next year could use a smartphone to call home. A German startup is preparing to set up the first telecommunication infrastructure on the lunar surface. The German company, Part-Time Scientists, which originally competed for the Google Lunar X Prize race to the moon, plans to send a lander with a rover in late 2018 to visit the landing site of Apollo 17, launched in 1972. This was NASA's final Apollo mission to the moon. Instead of using a complex, dedicated telecommunication system to relay data from the rover to the Earth, the company will rely on LTE technology, the same system used on Earth for mobile phone communications. Oh, this is just getting better. Seriously. Do you have a cell phone? Do you have an iPhone? Do you have an Android? What do you have? Do you have something that's like in the last 4 years? You got LTE. Okay, I go out into the country, I lose reception. All right.
Can you hear me now?
I got LTE. They're going to put this system on the moon so that people can talk to people on the moon through a cell phone tower. Oh, let's not use those satellites. Satellites I thought were up there. You know, what about a sat phone? relay to the satellite, down to Earth. Makes sense. Your infrastructure's there. You got about, what, 20,000 satellites up there? No. Let's just go with LTE technology. We know it's so good. We know it works great in areas where there's like no reception, or you go out in the country and tower reception is not that strong.
Can you hear me
and
now?
People are getting boosters. You can go out, go to Best Buy, buy a booster to boost your signal. You see all of these things, and yet they're going to send LTE technology to the moon with a cell phone tower. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. We are cooperating with Vodafone in order to provide LTE base stations on the moon.
Can you hear me now?
Becker, who heads embedded electronics development and integration for the startup, told Space.com. All right, Space, let's hear what she had to say. What we are aiming to do is to provide commercial services to bring goods to the moon and also to provide services on the moon. On the surface of the moon, Becker added. Part-time scientist has a launch contract for late 2018 with SpaceX. Oh, they just did a nice little contract, just signed on the dotted line. What, they signed in blood? Did Satan actually sign this contract? SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, these private space enterprises are nothing but a joke. They have constantly talked about doing all sorts of things. They never do follow their history as far as businesses. They get sucked up by space agencies such as NASA or the ESA. This is all a complete joke. This is an illusion. Oh, private enterprise, we're going to the moon. We're going to talk on cell phones. Yep. I'll believe it when I see it. Oh, that's right. I'm not going to see it. Falcon 9 rocket, Becker said, the company believes it will be the first private entity to reach the surface of the moon, suggesting that none of the Google Lunar X prize participants are likely to meet the December 2017 deadline for the competition. Part-time scientists itself withdrew from the Google Lunar X prize earlier this year due to the time constraints of the competition. Oh yeah, we just withdrew. Too much time going on. We're only part-time. We don't got a lot of time. We're part-time. Understand? Part-time scientists don't have a lot of time. So part-time scientists are actually going to do something that NASA or ESA or anybody else can't do. Yeah, let's just let a part-time scientist group that have only part-time, they don't have full-time to devote. But let's get them, to the moon, and let's get them to accomplish that. Yeah, we'll just help them out. That makes a lot of sense. The Falcon 9 will carry a team spacecraft, Alina, to the geostationary transfer orbit, a highly elliptical Earth orbit whose highest point is 26,000 miles or 42,000 kilometers. From there, Alina will continue on its own to the moon. Alina's just going to go to the moon by herself. We will soft land on the moon and disembark our 2 rovers. Oh, 2 rovers, not 1, 2. Oh, I wonder why we have 2. The 2 rovers are essentially mobile phones. Oh, they're rovers. So it's basically a cell phone with wheels. All right. Okay. So basically it's mobile phones with wheels that will communicate our video stream to Alina, which will serve as an LTE base station, and Alina will communicate that data to us, he said. All right. The 2 rovers, which appeared in this year's Alien Covenant film. Oh, that's right. Because the Hollywood loves to throw it out there and get everyone like, ooh, it was in the movie and now they're going to do it. Ooh, Star Trek, we're going to have this and we're going to do this and we're going to go to these planets. Oh, look at that. Going to the moon, going to Mars. What was it? They went to the Mars, all this push to go to Mars. Where are they? They're not even close to Mars. Yet weren't they supposed to be at Mars last year? Constant. You see this time and time again. It's 43 years they haven't been back to the moon, and yet part-time scientists are going to get to the moon? Give me a break. They don't even have full time to devote to the project. They're part-time scientists. They're not even scientists. This is just a big, absolute sham. But of course, they are linking up. They're going to make this great with LTE, and they're going to link arms with Vodafone. Oh, all right. The rover gets 90 watts of energy. 90 watts, that's powerful stuff, man. Powerful, yeah. Okay, solar panels, half of which goes to driving. Okay, all right. So yeah, you're down to, 45. You got 45 watts. What does that 45 watts do if, half of it goes to driving? Your phones with wheels. Previously, the other half would have to go to the modem for communicating directly to the Earth. Okay, yeah, makes sense, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. 45 watts of energy beaming voice transmission signals to the Earth. 238,000 miles away. For anyone that doesn't understand these distances, think of the furthest trip you've gone. It could be on a cruise, it could be on a plane, it doesn't matter. Then times that by 100. We're talking 238,000 miles to the moon. And yet 40 5 watts of energy, because half of it is devoted to driving. We couldn't get anything more powerful. We could only get a 45 watts of energy because driving takes a lot. So that's going to beam the communication to the Earth. Yeah, okay. But LTE is so powerful. I have it on my cell phone and I can just go anywhere all over the Earth and it works fine. No, it doesn't. But again, they're going to put a cell tower on the moon. Like, this makes any sense. Additionally, relaying data via the base station rather than directly to Earth solves difficulties with pointing the rover's antenna in the rough lunar terrain. Yeah, that's true. It is pretty rough up there, isn't it? Really rough. He said part-time scientist does not expect Alina and the rovers to survive the lunar night because of the extreme low temperatures. That's right, because space gets incredibly cold, incredibly hot. But wait a minute, you got all those satellites in the thermosphere. They're just doing fine, Basically, all the materials on those satellites, basically melt completely at all these different degrees. But yet, no, it's okay. They just work and they just never break down and nothing ever hits them, And heck, we're not going to use them. We've got like 20,000 of them, but no, let's not use them for communication. No, let's just use an LTE cell phone tower. All right, we're trying to show that you can use the most widespread means of communication, which is the mobile network, and particularly the LTE network on the surface of the moon.
Can you hear me now?
To execute missions there, said Becker, we are aiming to provide cost-effective solutions to problems that are arising in terms of building the lunar village. The lunar village. Oh, so basically we got to put cell phone towers before we can build a village. That makes sense. It totally makes sense now. Think about it. How are you going to have a village on the moon if you can't talk to one another? You need cell phone towers. Forget about just wiring it in old school style. But no, let's get cell phone towers because that's the main priority when you're building a lunar village. Who's going to live up there? Are we taking calls from the moon? Can I call them? Hey, how's it going, man? Just on the moon, just hanging out in my lunar village. Just got built. That's cool, man. Well, see you in a few years. No, I'm not coming back, man. I'm staying on the moon. According to Becker, part-time scientists plan to conduct a second mission, dun dun dun, around 2020. That would carry LTE terminal designed to survive in the harsh lunar environment. For extended periods of time. There you go, guys. Yeah, you figure that out. Figure out those really cold temperatures, and yeah, you just put your little part-time brains together, and you can kind of think it all through. The company is closely cooperating with ESA, European Space Agency. Of course they are. Of course they're going to cooperate with them. Hey, look at guys, we got some part-time scientists here that they're going to actually put some really cool cell phone towers and neat rovers that were in movies on the moon. Let's give them a hand. Let's not do it ourselves. We got all the infrastructure and we're the government and stuff. But no, let's give them a hand. Come on, business. We're all for business, big business. We're all for making businesses grow. So let's just give these part-time scientists a hand because, man, they got lives. They don't have full time to devote to this. They only got part time. So let's give them the other half of that effort to really make this succeed. Rich has proposed a lunar village concept. Of course, there's the village. You need cell phone towers.
Can you hear me now?
Not just to communicate to Earth, talk to one another. When you're on the moon, you're hanging out. You're going to the bar. You're kind of hanging out. Hey kids, where are you going? We're going to the playground. Don't fly away. What would lead to a permanent human presence on the surface of the moon? I wonder how long they've got this projected when they're going to have a permanent human presence on the moon, living in their lunar village. The agency's plan would let all nations and entities contribute to the overall operations with their unique skills and expertise. Thank you so much. The Alina spacecraft can carry up to 100 kilograms, 220 pounds of payload. Wow, impressive. Not during its first mission, the craft will carry 3 custom payloads, including an experiment designed by NASA. Hey, NASA, got to get in there. Hey, guys, you got 3 payloads? Can we be one? The ESA is like, guys, you guys are amazing. You guys are building a lunar village, man. We don't even know what's going on. Can we put a payload? What is it? The part-time scientists, put a part-time parcel together for their payload, and then NASA and the ESA got the other, parcels, Hey, it can't weigh over 220 pounds. That's heavy-duty stuff, man. 222 pounds, that's heavy. Yeah, but it's coming to 230. No, man, NASA, you got to get your stuff off. You got to reduce it. We can't get your stuff up. Think about this, honestly. You're going to, basically, part-time scientists are going to accomplish this with the aid of ESA and NASA, putting a payload on there. Might as well, got to get some credit. Seriously, this is absolutely ridiculous. They're talking about going to Mars. They have rovers on Pluto. This is NASA. This is what they claim. And yet they're going to basically let part-time scientists upstage them with, oh, but it's branding. We're going to make some money with Vodafone, and we're going to do commercial, branding up there with their logo. Oh, come on. Seriously. Silly, silly, silly. And yet people buy this. They buy this. Look at this. This looks just a tad better than the actual Apollo, made from like tinfoil and masking tape. This is silly. What is this? This is something you could buy at a store, you put together. It's like your kids put this together in like one of those boxes for models. I mean, this is ridiculous that they're going to go 238,000 miles away. Part-time scientists accomplish something that no other space agency has ever accomplished. Building cell phone towers through LTE. Thanks to Vodafone for helping with their brand and having their identity on the moon right next to Apollo 17. Okay, it's enough of this. You've seen enough. I'm sure you have. Bookmark this video, subscribe, like this video, add it to your playlist, whatever you need to do, because you can come back. How about December 15th, 2018? Because they say they're going in late. Let's just give them a little bit of, a little bit more time. Let's go right to December 20th. How's that? December 20th, 2018. Come back to this video. Nothing will have happened. There'll be no LTE cell towers. Part-time scientists will probably be having a part-time vacation, and we won't hear from them again because this is ridiculous. Let's keep exposing the world's lies. Celebrate truth. Take care, guys.
And while he had posted an update about a day ago saying he was going to come out with a non-biased flat earth video, unfortunately, the video is nothing close to being non-biased. It's actually probably a sad day for most Jason A fans, especially if you thought that he was a Bible literalist. I'm pretty sure that Jason A has fought incredibly hard at fighting the lies of scientism, especially when it came to the big lie of evolution. But as we'll see, he gets into it. It's sad. But he actually goes so far as to have a preacher saying that Genesis is probably poetic, and really we can't really take it literal, and it's really not important. And while I agree that we shouldn't divide against our brothers when it comes to topics like this, truth is important, and we need to understand that. So, without further ado, let's get into the video and see what everyone thinks of Jason A's latest, The Truth About Flat Earth.
Is it round or flat? Don't ask a brat. Results from a new study reveal a third of young American millennials aren't sure that the Earth is round.
National poll found that 18 to 24-year-olds are the largest group in the country who believe the Earth could be flat. It seems the older you get, the more you believe the Earth is round.
Here's what 18 to 24-year-olds said when asked, do you believe the world is round or flat? 66% have always believed the Earth is round, yippee. 9% always thought the world was round, but more recently became skeptical. 5% always thought the world was flat, but more recently had doubts. Good for them. 4% always believe the world is flat.
And apparently young millennials are behind the push. It comes as this man tried to launch himself into space on a homemade rocket to prove the theory. He just tested that rocket not long ago. I remember the day we brought this to you.
Yeah, well, when people tell the youth to fight the power, they don't mean Copernicus, right? I mean, there's some things that we can look at here and all understand that we're on the same page, but I would...
So, we're not supposed to fight Copernicus. It's interesting that he brings that up, and I wonder if Jason A has done any research on Copernicus, or Newton, or Pythagoras, or any of the great men of science that we've heard throughout the ages. I'm not sure, but let's continue.
Say that people should have a better understanding of why it is they believe what they believe. Because, for example, okay, we can all agree the Earth is round, but you ask people about climate change, and they'll just say because all. The answer really is because all the smart people say so, and that should never be your baseline of why you think something is or is not true. I did not think I'd get applause for that, by the way. That was nice.
So Buck just said the Earth is flat. That is freaking me out. All right, Kat.
Encouraging skepticism about what you've been taught. For the serious students here at the conference,
and this has got to a point now where it's becoming real.
It all comes down to proof.
When it comes to science, there's things you can test right now, right? Fire burns, water's wet, drop something, falls to the ground, that appears to be gravity. Those are things you can test, right?
But the curving horizon, the sloping sea level, the spin of the Earth, unless you can see these phenomena with your own eyes, they may not be true.
A lot of people are going, this is
crazy, right? But think about this. For the last 20, 25 generations, this is what we've told people.
Unlike what we've been told in school, some flat earthers imagine the Earth looks like a snow globe, round but not sphere. The North Pole is at the center of most flat Earth maps, with the ice of Antarctica holding everything in.
So are you certain this is what the Earth looks like?
Pretty sure. Almost. I mean, there are some details to be worked out, sure.
Those iconic blue marble images seen from space, flat earthers denounce them as fakes.
Because it seems like this conspiracy that the Earth is flat is picking up steam, and I don't even know who that would benefit. The globe makers, I guess, the globe barons? But it just seems crazy to me, because how many people you would have to keep that conspiracy going, because you fly to China, you didn't get to an edge.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't get to the edge, and you sent astronauts with, then they did pictures, and they showed a globe. So this is a big conspiracy, Tyrus.
Some flat earthers actually believe astronauts are just actors, part of a huge conspiracy going back to those very first steps on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You don't believe that they've gone to space?
No, not at all. The rockets go up, sure. There's nobody in them.
This is what happens when you answer text questions with selfies. That's exactly what this is. They didn't read this. Is the Earth? Yes. Like, this is the problem with, they just say things. They're like dogs chasing tires. They just do whatever. I'm not taking a test. You said you're crushing it.
I am.
You're the unicorn of the group.
Thank
Congratulations.
you, I knew it.
The rest are sheep. Wait, am I stuck in that group?
You might be.
Damn it.
Yes, I think you might.
Well, there's two unicorns in every thing.
Unicorn.
All right.
The Earth is round.
Enough bashing unicorns. I think life would be easier if the world was flat, and here's why. Think about how much easier it would be to throw stuff away.
Push it over the side.
Yeah.
Flat Earth was accepted as certainty until science and sailboats said otherwise.
One of the rules of power is you never admit that there's someone bigger than yourself.
But it wasn't until 2015 when this guy, Mark Sargent, posted his Flat Earth clues.
Part of a series of clues that can help you get your head around both the design of the flat Earth system we live in.
Think of the mystery of the Earth's underside. That'll be like the cool place to
They have.
That's a little basic.
I know. It's so simple, it'll go right over your head.
The credo for many of these believers, check it out for yourself.
Go out and test.
You just want them to ask the questions.
Why do you believe what you believe? And let you go from there. Because I could tell you something, and then you just look at me and say I'm crazy.
A lot of people watching this are going to be like, that man is crazy.
I'm sure they probably do. And I would say, well, they're crazy for not testing what they think they believe.
I think life would be easier if the world was flat, and here's why. Think about how much easier it would be to throw stuff away.
Push it over the side.
Yeah.
More mocking. More and more mocking. You hear this all the time. But again, so far, we're just touching a lot of stuff that we've seen already in the mainstream news. Obviously, there's clips from the Flat Earth International Conference, but it's going to get a lot worse.
Just walk over, drop it off the edge.
You live at the edge.
No, but you know what? It's like because the Earth is round, you can never really throw anything away. It goes in the Earth.
We could
Also, by
rocket
the
it
way,
into space.
Yeah, but then it just gets into this orbit.
And we'd be a lot smaller for the purposes of asteroids hitting us. Think about it that way,
Yes.
right? A lot thinner.
You know what? I'm so sick of you and your edge privilege.
The flat earthers have many, many more,
This is what returns to Earth.
which is why I thought someone who's actually seen the Earth from space might have some answers.
1 + 1 is?
2,
What color is the sky?
blue,
And the Earth is?
round, just like it is here, this model of it.
Professor Mike Massimino spent more than 20 days in space and worked on the Hubble telescope.
So when you looked at the planet, what did it look like?
It looks round, folks. It is round. My eyewitness account, and I looked at it as much as I could. It is round.
For more, let's check in with a young millennial for a comment.
Come on, Snogs. Don't think about it. You just gotta go.
Well, that Earth was flat.
Lots and lots of mocking. Continually we see in the mainstream media, especially with a topic such as flat Earth. Again, a lot of this dialogue is from the recent survey that came out. I've done a video touching on that, showing that more and more people are believing in flat Earth, or they're questioning the shape of the Earth. And again, this is good. People need to search for the truth, and they need to find it out for themselves, not rely on mainstream narratives, agencies, education systems. Again, especially when it's not scientifically proven. That's the thing. Let's go out. Let's do the experiments. But we're going to continue on, because all this is so far is mocking.
All right. I compiled a bunch of facts that prove the Earth is round. Because I had to. Because I couldn't remember how you prove it.
How do you prove it? How do you prove the spherical Earth? Should be fairly easy, shouldn't it? Not relying on pictures, videos, hearing the stories of ships going over the horizon. Or how about the sticks and shadows, Aristophanes, we hear about all the time. Again, let's go out. Show us the scientific experiment we can do to conclusively prove the curvature of the Earth, the movement of the Earth. We're still waiting.
But in a world of disagreements large and small, for something as clear as this horizon, the interpretation could be infinite.
Now, flat earth faith, though, and this kind of faith is a literist kind of faith. In other words, what I mean by that, even though there's no proof for the position, it believes it just the same, but it's worse than that, flat earth faith, in that it believes things literally. It believes that you can only read the Bible literally.
Now that's a new one. Flat earth faith. Let's talk about flat earth proof. Let's talk about not only does the Bible say it in a literal sense, but our senses show it. The experiments prove it. Show us the curvature. Show us through the scientific experiment. We're waiting.
Okay? And by that, what I mean is the scriptures must be read literally or you don't have faith. And because of that, they've decided that the scientists are all lying about all their information. All science are lying. They're just a bunch of liars.
No, we're not saying that science are just a bunch of liars. What we're saying is they're parroting exactly what they have been taught from their professors. It's been handed down for a very long time. No one is claiming that all scientists are liars. We're claiming that they're deluded themselves, that they're looking in the same textbooks and preaching the truth they believe for the universe, the same textbooks that they debunk when it comes to evolution. Why do you choose one and not the other? Why do you say it's literal six-day creationism and yet the pillars are not literal? Or that the earth doesn't move? Or how about Joshua when he commanded the sun and the moon to stand still? Oh no, God was only working with morons. He couldn't have told them that the earth was spinning. He couldn't have said, command the earth to stop. No, they were primitive. They were too prehistoric in your evolutionary narratives. Again, this is nothing but lies. And we're seeing, sadly, so many churches, preachers, defending the status quo when it comes to scientism, and yet rejecting the Bible for the literal interpretation that it should be, especially when we're talking about creation.
They're not honest people. The earth literally sets on pillars. It literally has 4 corners. It literally has a sky dome that if you go up high enough, you'd run into it.
It's called the firmament. It's in Genesis. It divided the waters from the waters. Christians, open your Bible. Read Genesis one more time and ask yourself, what is that? What is the firmament that divided the waters from the waters? And why do Psalms and other books after the flood still talk about the waters above the firmament? These are the questions, and yet preachers and Bible teachers like to dance around these and say that we shouldn't take the Bible literal when it comes to creation. It's just a theological book. It's not meant to be scientific, as we'll hear here soon.
It literally is a circle. It literally never moves. I couldn't put all the verses, okay, that they quote on that.
There's over 200 verses to support a stationary, flat, enclosed biblical cosmology that you want to ignore, that you want to shove away, that you want to fight against. Why? Why? Your love of scientism is showing so clearly.
I had to stop. In fact, a lot of this, but I did hear an interesting statement by somebody. They said the Flat Earth Society has members all over the globe.
First of all, the Flat Earth Society is disinformation. We do not believe that we're a floating pancake in space. No, there is no space, is what we've been taught. There's the firmament, and inside the firmament were placed the sun, moon, and stars on the 4th day. So everything that we see revolves around us, and yes, we're stationary.
I like that statement. I thought that was pretty good. Someone else said, most flat earthers would be cured if they traveled more. If they traveled to the equator and traveled east in a straight line and they stopped when they got back where they started, maybe they wouldn't be flat earthers anymore. But I don't want to make fun. I just think it's interesting because it's the problem, and this is what I want to deal with, is this concept of literalism. And I believe this will help you. If you understand what I'm going to teach tonight, if you understand this, this will change the way you read the Bible.
So we have somebody now teaching from the Bible, teaching his flock, his congregation, how to truly read the Bible. Not literal. He's going to teach us exactly the way we should read Genesis.
It'll change the way you study the Bible. Because we need to actually grow up. If we lean into that flat earth stuff, it's time to grow up. Put our big boy shoes on and our big boy underwear on. And
big boy shoes and big boy underwear. Who is this guy?
And really just grow up, okay? It's time. If you read them literally, the earth is flat, it has 4 corners. And they're right, and there's a dome above it. But folks, literalists are confused by the genres of God. They don't understand the concept of, apparently, literature genres. There are all kinds of genres in the Scriptures, and if I were to give you all the Scriptures here, if you thought that was a big list of Scriptures, you wouldn't even begin to imagine how many Scriptures I have. My outline tonight is ridiculous how thick, but if you want a copy of it, I'll get you a copy later. You're welcome to read them all, okay? I'm not trying to hide anything, not trying to pull any wool over anybody's eyes. But there's a thing called accommodative language. And that's
the doctrine of accommodation. We got to love this one, and we're seeing this more and more churches push this. The doctrine of accommodation basically teaches that God could only use what he was working with. And because they were nothing but sheep herders and really ignorant men, he could actually convey language to them in simplistic terms that only they would understand. But yet, future generations, of course, wouldn't get these meanings. These would be looking at as primitive. The doctrine of accommodation is so destructive, and yet so many are teaching this because it goes against the scientism narrative, and it's almost like they're embarrassed. They don't want to be laughed at. They don't want to be mocked. They don't want to be ridiculed, because who wants to accept something that's going against the mainstream scientism narrative? But what's curious is these are the same type that fight the lies of evolution. Yet they will support a Big Bang, heliocentric universe that is found nowhere in Scripture.
Words that get the primary message across without regard to stretched literal details. The goal of the writer is to get the message across effectively. And if you don't understand that concept, that God has to speak to you in a way because your mind is way down here and his is way up there above the sky in his brilliance and his understanding. He has to talk to you baby talk. And by doing that, he has to use accommodative language because you...
Baby talk. He has to say baby talk, like the firmament, like the pillars, like the earth is fixed, immovable. That's baby talk. Why wouldn't you just say the earth soars through the heavens like an eagle? We would have all believed it if we were following God and being obedient and we wanted to trust in him. Regardless what century, we would believe him on faith. This idea that he had to go with baby talk?
You can't understand the math he knows. You can't understand the science he knows. So he uses accommodative language. Another thing he uses is allegory. That's symbolic representation, such as a blindfold figure holding scales as an allegory of what? Justice. Euphemisms. It's an act or an example of substituting a mild, indirect, or vague term for one considered harsh or blunt or offensive. The Bible is full of allegory, it's full of euphemisms, it's full of accommodative language, it's full of...
Oh, it's full of parables, and yes, allegories, but what's interesting is the Bible explains when it is a parable. Jesus was very specific when he said, this is a parable, and they would continue on. There's times when allegories are completely stated, and yes, there's poetic language in the Bible, but poetry still conveys something happening, like the sun running a race, like a bridegroom. The sun is doing something, moving. Scientism has told us the sun is still, and it doesn't move. Who are you going to believe, God or men? Let God be true, but every man be a liar.
Hyperbole. That's a figure of speech in which extreme exaggeration is used for emphasis or effect, like, I could sleep for a year. Well, you couldn't. So those are in scriptures. I'm sorry, they are. The Bible isn't all a bunch of literal, take literal everything it says. There's poetry in Scripture. Some would say Genesis 1 is poetry. We know Psalms is. We know that Lamentation is. And we know that there are prophetic songs that are. And then there's
Genesis isn't Psalms.
Proverbs in Scripture. And those are usually sayings that are often popular, that were popular in the day. So one expects. Now you would expect that a skeptic would maybe be ignorant of such, but if they're not ignorant of such, if they used it, they're using it to mock those of us who believe in the Bible.
No, actually, we're not at all. We're actually saying that we can hold true to every jot and tittle, especially when it comes to creation, that God said he created it exactly the way he said. And as we'll see, as we continue on, even he will state that the sun, moon, and stars were created on the fourth day. So how is this guy believing in a heliocentric Big Bang universe? I have no idea.
And so it's really not something we should not think everything's taken literally from the Scriptures. But people who do believe that tend to not understand this basic concept that there's various genres in here. And if you don't understand that and you start saying you got to take that literal, generally speaking, if you're doing that, you've got an axe to grind. You just got an axe to grind. And you're trying to push something. And you should look at both sides. It could be literal, but it could be that it's just using one to north, south, east, and west. They just don't understand that. The four winds of the earth, the wind from the north, the wind from the south, wind from the east, wind from the west. They just don't understand that. These concepts, that these are just ways of describing things. We can end up, if we're literalists, we can end up forgetting what the purpose of the text is in our hurry to teach what we want to believe. For example, when a purpose or a message overrides the science or logic or taking it literally, one has to believe the literalist approach in Genesis 1 or that the earth is 6,000 years old if he's going to be a faithful Christian. No. You can be a faithful Christian and not believe that. Oh, but you have to. Well, the Bible doesn't actually say it was 6,000 years ago. That you have to calculate that, first of all. Okay? You have to calculate that. There's no ever any number given in the scriptures.
Now, first of all, I don't know who he's quoting saying that all flat earthers or all Bible literalists say that you can't be a Christian if you're not literal. So I would like to see your notes, Pastor. Maybe I can write you and you can actually send them to me to find out exactly where you got the fact that all of us say you can't be a Christian. This is secondary doctrine. It is important, but I've gone on the record saying it's secondary. This is incredibly important, but to dismiss it, to say that we all believe that no one's saved or no one truly can be a Christian without believing it, shame on you.
So the earth may be, that may be exactly right. I'm not in a position to argue it. It may be exactly right. But that you have to believe it that way is taking the literalist position. And what the problem with that is that you're misunderstanding. Genesis chapter 1 was not meant to be a scientific book. Genesis is not meant to be a scientific book. It's a theological book. It's teaching theological ideas. And while one may recognize that there's some ideas there that are kind of scientific, you need to understand that God had a greater purpose in writing that than teach science.
They're kind of scientific. So while he says that it's a theological book and it's not a science book, he says there's obviously science in Genesis. Why do you contradict yourself, Pastor? Seriously, it doesn't make any sense with what you're saying. But furthermore, the Bible is not a science textbook. It is not a history textbook. It is the Word of God. It is not just even a theology book. You can't relegate the Word of God to just a mere book. The idea that all truth is found in Scripture. And from a literal standpoint, it's incredibly important. If you can't take the literal interpretation of Genesis, how do you know that Jesus literally rose from the dead? How could you take anything literal? But yes, you jump and you dance around because it doesn't fit the scientism narrative. It's time to release. It's time to move away from this indoctrination of scientism. Your love of space, of the universe, of NASA, it is actually getting sickening. It's becoming an idol because you're propping up the lies of men and of scientism over the Word of God. You're justifying it, and you're choosing to teach people when it doesn't come off literal, or when it's allegory, or when it's poetry. I'm curious, Pastor, what about Joshua? Is that a literal story? Is that a historic story? Or is that just poetry? And Genesis, furthermore, when it comes to the mechanics, when it comes to the order, as we'll see right away, the pastor will get into even talking about the sun, moon, and stars being created on the fourth day. Wait a minute, I thought it was poetry. I thought it was allegory. You can't have both. Stick to one, but you're choosing to stick to the one that you love, and it's science. You don't want to be looked at as a fool because science clearly has taught you that, of course, we come from an exploding Big Bang universe, heliocentric, where we all orbit the sun, yet the Bible doesn't say it, and you don't want to look like a fool. But I'm sorry, the wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. Look to God's wisdom, not men's.
That wasn't why he wrote it. And when the text itself suggests that there are other ways of interpreting a text, then you should not be so dogmatic on a literalist approach. Let me give you an example of that, and that is the word day in Genesis. Now, I've been literalist, so I think you should understand. I've been a literalist. So I want to give you, there are at least 7 possible meanings of the word day in Genesis 1 and 2. There's 7 of them here. The light was called day, which is 12 hours. So the light was called day, so that's one kind of day. Genesis 1 and verse 5. Genesis 1 verse 5 also says the evening and the morning were the first day. Now that indicates 24 hours, but wait a minute, the evening and the morning, the dark and the daylight are called a day, and the daylight's called a day. So that's 2 right there. All right, and then Genesis 2 verse 2. He rested on the 7th day from all of his works which he had done, but no formula in Genesis 2:2 is mentioned. The evening and the morning were the evening and the morning. That's not done on the 7th day. Did you ever pick up on that? 5th meaning of the word day that's used here. The sun and the moon and the stars regulate a day as we know it. I mean, I get up when the sun comes up, right? Go to bed when the sun goes down, right? Stars come out at night. I know it's dark because there's stars out at night. Those didn't exist until day 4 Okay, so day 1, 2, and 3, whatever those days were like, they're not like the days you and I are experiencing.
Interesting. And while he goes with the sun, moon, and stars being created on the fourth day, whatever days are, and I mean, in his semantics of talking evenings and mornings and specifics, the whole idea, though, is regardless, the sun, moon, and stars came after the earth. So why are you propping up scientism and a Big Bang heliocentric narrative when clearly the Bible contradicts that, however you look at days? Even if you looked at them as age groups, millions of years. You're telling me the earth was here for millions of years, then the sun, moon, and stars? Show me the science textbook that says that. Pastor, this is getting completely tragic on your account. Now, while I can understand that there might be variances when it comes to days, literal 24-hour days, I look at it as that. But I agree, this is not salvational, and I'm not going to divide, and I'm definitely not going to, accuse or sit there and judge a brother for believing a variance of it. But when they hold on to a scientism narrative, when they hold on to evolution or the Big Bang heliocentric network, I have to look at it and say, wait a minute, something clearly is going on. And the same thing can be said about Christians that have other Christian brothers and sisters and they believe in evolution. Would you not be passionate to share?
I think that if you disagree with me, you're wrong.
We're not talking about